just from head office out to the regions, but the regions into head office. And then thirdly, just ensuring that we think from a global perspective. So I think what has shifted in my experience is thinking from a centric head office perspective into thinking more globally. And I don't know what organization doesn't do that now. And it's not just about thinking, but acting, and not assuming that what's created at home in the center is often the best solution, because there are great solutions that are out in the region that can absolutely be leveraged in head office, and we're often challenging ourselves and ensuring we keep fresh from that perspective.
Great.
I'll go. So I'm Randy Upright, and I'm with Manpower, Manpower Group. We're a company that's in 83 countries. We have about 4,600 offices, so we're kind of all over the place. And I would just say, like, you're the most important people, we think, because talent is king. And before I say anything else, I should say, yes, David, you've wrecked everything. And what we're really finding is that, you know, the whole world of capitalism as we know it, it's really changing. And we have a term, and Elliott, I know you said you don't like these coined terms, but I've got one. We think that the world's shifting to talentism. And as we look at what's happening with the baby boomers, they started leaving. We have 19 years of exit. And as these people leave, we really understand that they are the people that are going to need the services. They're the people that are providing the services. They're the people in your organizations today who have all of the knowledge, all of the experience, all of the years. And we're bringing people in now. And what I've had to see change in my organization and what we're working on a global level is that a few years ago, we would say, well, you know, look at these Gen X and look at these Gen Ys. They are going to have to learn the way of the work world. Remember saying that? Well, now we're saying, boy, we're really going to have to learn how we are going to be able to attract, engage, and retain this talent, because talent is king. And you can have all the capital you want, but if you have no talent, then you have nothing to offer. And we're going to see this crunch become excessive in the next decade. After 2 decades, the crunch is so significant that we really have to look at how do we retain talent, how do we really engage that talent, and conversations that we're still having today we won't be having in a decade. Conversations like, can our employee wear an iPod at work? Should our employee be allowed to use their cell phone? Those will be gone because, of course, they'll be telling us what they're going to do to come and work in our environment. And so we're all having to shift, and that's where HR is going to be so interesting over the next couple of decades.
And, you know, one of the interesting things that Manpower obviously is providing a lot of both contingent and contract and other elements. Historically, we never thought about having to invest in knowledge for those folks. You know, they were coming in to fill a slot. But I know enough about your business that a lot of what you're now having to do is to make sure that they have the knowledge to do those roles and stuff. So how's knowledge changed in the Manpower business?
Wow. That is probably our #1 focus right now. And even today, a lot of you would know that we have a skill shortage. We think that we have some, you know, excess amount of talent, but we really don't. Today, it's not something that's coming in the future. Today, we're having problems filling roles. We have on our books in Alberta offices over the next 4 years, just in oil and gas projects, 17,000 positions that we're aware of that we don't know how we're going to fill. 17,000 just that we're aware of today. We haven't even really begun to look at, and I'm not talking about how many positions do we expect to fill, I'm talking about 17,000 that we don't know how we're going to fill. On top of that, we're looking at how are we going to attract people to our country, and all of us in HR need to be very, very focused on that piece that you're talking about, which is what do we need to do to be preparing the current workforce and not just preparing them for technical information. In the world of IT is a very good example. What we're filling in terms of roles and what the technical skill base is in IT didn't even exist 10 years ago. And the point is, we don't even know what we will need people to know in 5 years. It's changing that fast.
And last but not least.
Great. My name's Greg Pollard. I'm a partner in Ernst & Young's Transaction Advisory Service practice in Calgary here. We use a lot of acronyms, so really that's the due diligence type of practice. We in the accounting business, we don't have a lot of difficulty attracting people. You know, if you want to get your CA and it's still a valued commodity, there's only one route really to get that. And so attraction is not an issue. Our biggest issue is the one that Randy, you just spoke of, and you talked about earlier, which is the people who are coming up through the system are saying there are a lot of options out there. We're training them well. And how do you retain those people? And how do you retain them at the same time you're built on a pyramid that you know that people are going to leave? So it gets back to this idea, you train them, you help them basically develop their asset, and you hope that some stay and some leave. But when you've got 17,000 positions sitting out there, you know maybe that floodgate's going the other way. The other problem is that, and maybe this goes back to the baby boomer, in my generation, the gold standard was you stayed and you became a partner. Now, we ask people if they want to become a partner, and they look at us and they go, why would I want your lifestyle? You work too hard, you don't seem too happy at what you're doing, you know? And by the way, I can't get stock options, and so it's become that I think is the key issue that we're dealing with right now, is how do you retain people in the system?
Let me ask you a question. Often the conversation when I talk to folks in professional services like you are, the question is the goal to train people wide or deep? You kind of think about the two sides of the T in that. Where are you focusing now? Is it wide or deep? Obviously the answer is probably both. But
yeah, it really is both. If I take myself personally, we were talking earlier,
right,
about every 5-6 years I get bored with what I'm doing. Sounds like a common theme here. And the firms have been great at saying, if you don't want to be an auditor, we can move you into litigation support. I'm also a trustee in bankruptcy, so it's useful in this town at times. And so you can, the firms are great. Or if you want to become a very, very deep subject matter expert and get to know complex accounting, you can spend your entire life doing that. And I think that the public professional practice firms are great from the training point of view. They have great training programs, web-based learning, all the technical side of it. If you want to learn those skill sets, the real question is more I'll call it the human resource side of it. That's the real difficulty we have.
Let's use the word agility. I introduced that as one of the themes. And I'd love you each to take and make your answers kind of shorter so we can go through lots. But each just kind of riff for a moment about agility. And that could be your own agility, your leader's agility, your organization's agility. What's your reaction when you hear the word agility? Why don't you start?
Yeah, and I'd like to throw out the question, because this is, an accountant being in a room like this is a great opportunity to learn. And because this is totally different than accounting, I can tell you. But the real question we're facing, and I've been involved in this from a national level, is how do you affect change? Maybe that's another word to say it. Yeah. I mean, agility may be great, but how do you get those baby boomers to listen to some of the things that you're talking about here, and how do you affect that change? And that seems to be the big part. Nice to talk about agility, but I mean, I think of your example when you were talking to that young student, the 23-and-a-half-year-old. And yet, my impression was, even though you work in this field, you're still, to some degree, stuck in that old paradigm. Mm-hmm. Think of what senior accounting partners are stuck in. And I'd be interested in see how people actually try and affect this change that you are leading, HR people are leading edge on.
Well, let's